consume the media you want to target. You cannot pitch blind. The best way to start is to look at the media that you want to target. Understand who inside of that media outlet is covering things that relate to your business. The journalists are very mindful that they want their readers, viewers, or listeners to take something away from the interview with you or the article with you.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Please don't ever discount free publicity as part of your marketing mix. It is the most powerful marketing that you can do.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. Her name is Kate Engler, and she breaks the rules of how businesses get publicity. Her Meet the Press Masterclass links journos directly with hand-selected business owners and allows journalists to hear multiple pitches in one go, direct from the client, with no PR whitewashing and no more dud pitches. Kate challenges the way publicity is harnessed by businesses by giving them access to thousands of dollars of free media exposure without using the traditional PR agency model or needing her assistance beyond her highly regarded masterclass. And every year, masterclass graduates regularly feature across thousands of hours of TV and radio time and hundreds of pages of national, local, and specialty newspapers and magazines, including some of Australia's biggest TV shows, including The Project, Current Affair, The Today Show, Ticker TV, Sunrise, the ABC, News 24, Daily Mail, Body and Soul, the list goes on, Prevention Magazine, Inside Small Business and Smart Company as well. They have been interviewed on numerous radio stations, including 3AW, 2UE, 6PR, ABC Radio, and around the country, and 4BC, and featured in nation's biggest circulating newspapers, including The Age, the Sydney Morning Herald, the Courier Mail, the Australian Herald Sun, and Daily Telegraph, as well as many local newspapers. Welcome, Kate Engler, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you, Athin. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to having a nice, robust chat.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure it's amazing. And especially with all that background about what you have, I'm sure it's going to be awesome for everyone watching and listening today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people that know who you are, just introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Sure. So our reason for being is to make a powerful, positive difference in the lives of entrepreneurs and business owners. And I guess the vehicle of choice that we have for that is publicity. I've had 30 years of playing in the PR space. And I guess, Athin, the thing that was really a tipping point for me was when I was working in traditional PR agencies with the monthly retainer that clients pay month after month after month after month after month. There were so many amazing businesses and entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of our country. I just bloody love entrepreneurs. I think they're fun and courageous, and they're out to make a difference. So they're great people to hang out with. So these gorgeous folk would come into the agencies knowing that free media was going to be a game changer for them, that the credibility and the kudos and the customers that inevitably follow media coverage was going to be a game changer for their business. So they'd be all excited when they walked into the agency, but then the agency would outline the fee structure of that ongoing monthly retainer. And those gorgeous same entrepreneurs would leave the agency with their tail between their legs because they couldn't afford the agency fees. And so then they would think to themselves, oh, we mustn't be big enough for the journalists or big enough for the media. And that just broke my little entrepreneurial heart one too many times. I thought we've got to do something about this. So 13 years ago now, I created the Meet the Press Masterclass, which, as you said in your very kind introduction, sets businesses up so they don't need a PR agency or me as they move forward into generating their own media coverage. So we're pretty passionate about kind of giving the media's magic lamp to entrepreneurs and teaching them how to rub it, and then setting them forth so they can rub that magic lamp for the rest of their days themselves. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds amazing. And what all the the SMEs, the entrepreneurs, the ones that are really making it happen, you can really maximize to get themselves out there a lot more. And let's touch on the differences now, because there's unpaid media and paid media, right? So do you want to share a little bit more about that and the differences, behind it?
Yeah, sure. So if you imagine the media is a coin, right? And there's two sides of the media coin. One side that most people are familiar with is the paid media, the paid side. That's commonly called advertising, right? You pay your $1,000 or your $5,000 or your $500 and you get your piece in the magazine or your piece in the newspaper or your, 30-second ad on TV or radio. And that's paid for. You're guaranteed coverage. You can kind of script what it is that the ad says, and it will definitely run. The other side of the media coin is the unpaid media or free media or publicity. It's got a number of names. Earned media is another way that that's referenced. And what that means is it's not paid, but equally there's no guarantee, right? You need to create a pitch for the journalists that is newsworthy. That's why it's called earned media, because you must earn your way into those pages or onto those programs with a really great news story. Lots of people collapse advertising and publicity, and they have this misconception that the journalists will promote their business, that they will, if you've got a new car wash serum, it's like, so if you need to get your car washed, try this new car wash serum. That's not the journalist's job. The journalist's job is to tell the news. So a really great phrase for your listeners to really embed into their thinking when they're thinking about earned media, free media, publicity is news they can use. And what I mean by they is both the journalists and their audience. The journalists are very mindful that they want their readers, viewers, or listeners to take something away from the interview with you or the article with you. So news you can use is a really valuable tool. So that's essentially the difference between paid media, advertising, and unpaid or earned media. It's far more powerful because you are then positioned as the expert. So it's pretty sexy. It's a pretty sexy place to play in.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously having somebody like yourself to help, guide you on doing that, because it's like anything, right? You can put something out there, but if you don't follow the process of what they like, then, they're probably going to go, it's not worth my time to try and work this out, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, helping that, which is amazing. And I know you talk about, I guess, the number one free resource to connect with and pitch to journalists as well. Do you want to share about that one?
Yeah, I love this platform. This is not my business. I am not financially associated with this business at all. It is run by one of my best mates, but that's not why I recommend it. It's called Source Bottle. Source as in be the source, not sauce that you put on your pie. And essentially, for those of your listeners who don't know what Source Bottle is, the best way to describe it is it's like a dating site for journalists and experts. So twice a day, Source Bottle will send you an email. These are not onerous emails to scan. Please don't be panicked that, oh my God, it's another email. It takes 10 seconds to scan this email. But the gold that's in those emails, because those emails list all of the stories that the journalists are currently working on and the experts they are seeking. So in your case, Athin, you're a business specialist. So there might be a call out that says, what are the 3 biggest mistakes that small business owners make when they are setting themselves up, right? You could respond to that and say, in my experience, but. So Source Bottle is low-hanging fruit. It is a no-brainer. Every business in Australia should be on Source Bottle because it's a free resource. Journalists are actively looking for experts each and every day for a wide variety of stories and issues that they are covering. Some days you'll scan Source Bottle and there'll be nothing there. Great, delete, move on. But on the day that there is something there that you can respond to, that can lead to national media coverage like that. So it's definitely a resource that every business owner should plug into, particularly given it's a free resource, right? It's a free platform for users. So get on it.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds amazing. And get on it, like you said. And it's just awareness. A lot of people are not aware that there's things like that. And there's so many other platforms, just the simple ones like the Airbnbs and these things like that, right? Where you go on and you can find stuff that you want. But this time it's like, hey, yeah, this will be something that's a free thing to connect people, which I love as well. And You talked about mistakes there, right? Like as in an article that I could do for businesses that are key. I'm sure there's business owners do a lot of mistakes, right? As well when they're trying to do their own publicity and media relations and things like that. So do you want to maybe share some of those key mistakes or whatever it is and how we can, I guess avoid them? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me pose a question to you. When you draft a media release, who is the audience for that? It's a bit of a trick question, so I'll be kind to you. But when you draft a media release, who is the audience for that media release?
I would say, being strategic on this answer, that there are two audiences. There is the journalist, and there are the people that are actually going to read it as well, like my target market.
Great. So that first part of your answer is bang on. Second part of your answer is one of the mistakes that people make. So and so don't feel bad. Everyone says this, Athin. Everyone says, oh, it's single mothers or it's personal trainers wanting to expand their business or whatever their target client base is. So it's a really common error that people make. And here's the thing, your target audience will never see that media release. So you only have one audience for your media release, and that is the journalist. Even if you're sending it to 5 journalists, it's still one journalist. Because what you want from your media release, it's got to be one page with one idea. So my mantra is one idea, one release, one page, one pitch. One idea, one release, one page, one pitch. Any of the runners that are on the call, that's your new running mantra. One idea, one release, one page, one pitch as you're pounding the pavement, because the journalists want to know that quickly what the pitch is about. And then we want them to energetically lean in to what it is that you're saying. Then we want them to have an interview with you to either write the article or see that you're good enough talent to put on their airwaves, whether that's TV or radio. So the job of the media release is very simple. It is just to get the journalist to lean in and say, hey, tell me more about this. So another mistake that people make, not only about having their media release attempt to speak directly to their end user, their potential customer, which is not the way to go about it. But the other thing that people often make the mistake of when they're preparing a media release is they think they need to write the whole finished article and submit that. And that is absolutely not the case. It's the journalist's job to write the article. So again, we want to tease their eyeballs to come and lean into us, to find out more about us and interview us so that then they can write an article themselves. It's the journalist's job to write the article, not yours. So they're just two of the mistakes that we see pretty regularly.
Yeah, I love it. It's it's like the sizzle, not the steak, right? It's like getting them, interested without giving them too much information and going, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me find out a little bit more and see if we can make this work. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Let's talk about the types of PR and, whether it's the levels or the best type of PR, because you mentioned a bit there about, it could be a written article, right? Which is, I guess, easier to an extent as they write it. And then you've got the radio, the TV, that side of things. So do you want to talk maybe about the differences here and I guess the impact and getting on those different types of PR and the best ones, I guess, from that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess everybody wants to be on national TV, but not everybody is suitable for national TV. It is a visual medium. So if you're, I don't know, an accountant and you've designed this amazing new software that's going to compete with MYOB or Xero, you're probably not going to get onto TV, because what are they going to show? Like a spreadsheet and a platform of numbers? Like, it's not very sexy for TV. However, that is very sexy for media that speak directly to business owners. So Smart Company, Dynamic Business, Inside Small Business, Forbes, all of those sorts of publications would be perfect for a new accounting software. So it's very important that you match the pitch to the type of media and then tailor your message appropriately to that media. So I remember one of the former editors of BRW, the one that actually initially dubbed me the PR Antichrist, he was one of the editors at BRW. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it used to be a printed magazine. BRW stands for Business Review Weekly. So it's very business focused. And he used to get often media releases from PR firms about organic baby onesies. And he's like, which part of Business Review Weekly did you not understand? Because we're never going to run anything about organic baby onesies because we're not a kids magazine. We're not a parent and child magazine. So there was a real mismatch there. And I think that's one of the things that before people put fingertip to keyboard to start constructing their pitch, they need to have in their mind, who's the target media for this? Because that will inform the construction of the pitch and the things that you say. So if you were pitching to Breakfast TV, for example, they really like 5 top tips. 5 top tips to reduce my mortgage, 5 top tips to get my kids to eat vegetables better, 5 top tips to reduce your home loan, right? Which is same as mortgage. I said that twice, but you know what I mean. So they're always after 5 top tips. So that's a really important thing to include in the pitch. With talkback radio, for example, they actually want people talking back to them because silence on radio is death. So in the pitch, you would be absolutely appropriate to say, I'm happy to take talkback callers and answer questions from talkback callers and answer them for you because the most commonly asked questions I get are but. So the producer that receives that pitch from you, because you've talked about being willing to take questions from talkback callers, you instantly show the producer that you know how that form of media is played and what that form of media is most looking for. So there's no one media that's best because it's very much about where are the eyeballs and eardrums of potential clients hanging out. Now, that sounds a little bit like I've contradicted myself because initially I said the media release is not for your target market, and it isn't, but it needs to match the form of media, the masthead, the type of media, the publication or the program that you are pitching to. So you don't have the organic baby onesie going to Business Review Weekly. You have the new accounting software going to Smart Company or Inside Small Business or Dynamic Business so that there's a fit. So each business needs to really think strategically about what are the best media channels for their pitching so that they don't, wait. What we don't want is people spinning their wheels and wasting time going, oh, this publicity thing, it doesn't work. If you're not targeted and strategic, it won't work. So get targeted and get strategic.
Yeah, love it. Awesome stuff there. And it's funny, right? Because what I'm thinking about is like, I always tell the people like with authority, media is obviously one of them. And I've always said like, get on a podcast. Like you don't have to host one like me because that's a commitment, but get on them because it builds the muscle, right? Because it's not like you can just rock up and be on, the set of a news channel, right? You'd have to build some level of muscle of being, talking, whether it's on stages, virtual, in person, or on podcasts and things like that. So that you're comfortable in your topic and you can showcase that, right? And then that way you've got a higher chance of actually going on there. Would that be a fair assumption there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a number of platforms that are really great for people to kind of grow that muscle. Podcasts is one. Ticker TV is fantastic. It's a fantastic place for businesses in Australia to start. Sometimes people go, you've got to pay to be on Ticker TV. You don't. You absolutely don't. You still need to pitch to Ticker TV, pitch the idea to them. Post-interview, yes, they will offer you the opportunity to buy the clip, but that's just a copyright fee. And once you buy that clip, you can slice it and dice it however you like. So it's really inexpensive micro content for you. It's a very user-friendly, no gotcha moment environment. And it really allows people to grow that muscle in terms of a live TV or radio interview, just like a podcast would. But you're in the studio if you're in Melbourne, or you fly into Melbourne, and it's a next step up, right? But you're absolutely correct. Being able to convey your message in a clear, concise, and timed way, because your media interview isn't going to be like a podcast that goes for 30 minutes, it's going to be 5. So get really clear and really concise on your messages. And the more muscle you can grow in doing that in incremental ways, then you'll be on national TV before you know it.
Yeah, I love it. A really great point that you mentioned there was incremental, right? And I think there's an order, right, from my understanding. I know you're more of the expert in here. Like, for example, if you want to get into an article, you're not necessarily going to be in Forbes as the first article that you get into. You know what I mean? Tomorrow, unless you're doing it really well and you're at a very good position, right, where you're there. But you may need to get into other publications first, or same with the TV or the radio side or things like that, right, to sort of build it up. So is that how it works with these different media things, where ideally we start to create a bit of a foundation before going to some of the bigger players as well?
Yeah, some people certainly do that. I mean, at our masterclass, we bring in publications like Forbes, like The Project, like A Current Affair, like Today Show, all the major dailies, all of the big guys. So it's a bit of a fast track to them. So some of our graduates, Athin, have had their first article appear in Forbes, because the journalists come and gobble up all of the business owners that we have there. But if you are starting yourself, a really great place to start is in the local paper or the state-based paper. And the thing about those two publications is media consumes other media. So what I mean by that is, in the production meeting of the breakfast TV programs, they've got the major daily papers laid out on the desk, looking at what is current, what is newsworthy, what is worth covering in the program that day. And so, to give you an example, we had a gorgeous young man with a beautiful story to tell and a big difference to make. He came to our Melbourne Masterclass last October. The Herald Sun picked him up. Channel 10 National News Bulletin saw that edition of the Herald Sun, and he was on national news that same night. And then, as a result of seeing the national news, his local newspaper kind of worked a bit backwards, but his local newspaper saw it, went, oh, this kid's local. We need to do a story on him. So from one pitch, he picked up 3 pieces of coverage from the masterclass, because media consumes other media. And that's a really great thing for people to realize. So you can start with the local paper. You can start with community radio. You can start with podcasts, and then grow your profile and your skill level up from there.
Yeah, love that. Awesome. Let's talk about the leverage and monetization side now, because I think this is a really important thing, because you can go on there just to make yourself look good, but in the end, that's not really going to feed your family or anything like that, right? Because you want it to grow your business, or whatever the intention is, right, that you're there for. So what tips can you give, to people of going, like, we've done the interview, we've done whatever, we've got the article. How can we then, take people down a journey, to work with us and get the most out of that, to capitalize on that the most?
Yeah, absolutely. And it depends on which media it appears in. But the thing that people need to really make sure they have in place is a really good back end, a really good funnel. So to give you an example, one of our wealth experts from the masterclass, he's been to about 5, I think, masterclasses, he was on Sky News. By the time he left the studio at Sky News and got to his car in the car park, there were 200 new leads in his inbox. Now, he's got a great funnel. He's got a really good funnel. He's got a really good onboarding process. He's got a really good way of monetizing those leads. So his back end is great. So if he didn't have that, those 200 people would be sitting in his inbox going, am I ever going to hear from this guy? Like, I've expressed interest, but I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks. Well, no one's going to do business with him after 3 weeks of not hearing from them, right? So it's really important that you have your back end and your funnel sorted. Now, I'm not a funnel expert. I have people that work for me that do a brilliant job of that. Shout out to my Beck. She's amazing, but you've got to make sure your back end is in place. It's rare, but it sometimes happens that at the end of the interview, particularly if it's radio or TV, they might say, "So, Athin, how can people find out more about you?" That's rare, but it does happen. So be ready with that. But the other way to do it is when you're answering questions. And I was having this conversation with one of our fertility experts who's been on Sunrise probably about 7 times, I reckon, in the last 12 months. And she's like, I just, like I can't get people to pull through. And I said, because you're just answering the journalist questions. You're not saying, well, when I consult with couples, this is what I'm seeing. As part of my fertility program, this, and this needs to be addressed in people's diet or households or whatever. You're not planting the seed of the type of work that you do. Now, that's quite an elegant, subtle thing to do. It's a muscle. It's for sure a muscle, but it's not a muscle. It's a really delicate little muscle where you weave into the answers to the questions that the journalists ask you. You stitch into those answers little nuggets of how you work with people, so that the viewers or readers can go, oh, I didn't know that she did that. Oh, I need to reach out to Lucy. You don't want to collapse it and start to, well, I do this and my program does that. And, you don't want to do that when you're in a media interview. You've got to be more subtle about it. Once you get the coverage, though, leverage, leverage, leverage. Punch it out through your social media. Send it out to your database. Put it everywhere that you have been interviewed in or on that particular program or publication, so that people can, that creates an energy around the coverage as well. So it's not just getting the coverage, it's leveraging it too.
Yeah, I love that. Great answer there. Just one little quick thing on that. So when we're being strategic in seed planting, I like to call it, those little things about how we help people, where do we want to drive them to exactly? Like, is it to try and you're not necessarily, hey, go to my website or things like that? Is that sort of where it is? Or, what is your recommendation on how we're sort of, using that language, I guess, to get them to that funnel,
Yeah.
so to speak, that we want? Yeah.
Sure. So if the journalist says, that sounds amazing, Lucy, for example, where can people find out more about your fertility program, which, as I said, is rare. Then obviously you tell them, dub, 2 lines fertility, which is what Lucy's business is. With the example I used before, though, of our wealth guy and the 200 new leads, he did not mention his business once. But in the super that comes up underneath where it says Andrew Woodward, the Investor's Way, people just could go out to his Investors Way website, and that's where the 200 new leads came from. So again, that's really important that you've got your back end sorted. If you know you're going to be on Sunrise or Today's Show tomorrow morning, last thing tonight, you want your web designer to put that logo on your website above the fold as featured on Sunrise Today, the project, whatever it happens to be. So that if people go, was his name Andrew or Anthony? Was it Woodward or Woodmiss or whatever, and they land on his website and they see the Sky News logo there or the Today Show logo, because he's been on both. They're like, oh, I'm in the right place. So there are things you can do to help capture those eyeballs once they land on your page.
Yeah, nice, awesome, love that. Thank you for sharing a little bit more deeper on that, and having that cool pull when they go on the website, going, how can I, fill out a form or whatever it is, right, to start that process from there. So, let's talk about from the next level, right? So we've got the PR, you're getting people in the room and everything like that, and obviously you're creating those relationships. Do you have any tips, right? Because you're obviously you're creating an experience, right, for people, and to get that fast track. I've got some ideas, but I'd like to know from your perspective, right? Like, how do you put your best foot forward, right? So that you have the biggest chance of building that relationship, having some actions, that come from that, or some next steps. So when you're meeting the journalist, let's say your event or your masterclass, right? How do we then make sure that we're putting our best foot forward to maximize the relationships to, hopefully all of them, come to fruition, type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess the big thing is we spend a whole day and a half training the businesses in the room at our masterclass on what the media is looking for, how they can be an asset rather than a pain in the neck, how to really maximize their expertise in the eyes of the journalists. Then we work with each business individually on their pitch and really embed that into their DNA so it becomes second nature. So all of that happens before lunchtime on day 2 when the journalists arrive. So I often call it training people to within an inch of their life. And then before we unleash the journalists on them. And then the really key part is because, meeting journalists, people can get a bit, like a bit short of breath and need a paper bag to kind of decompress. We have a call with each and every business post masterclass where we really give them a prescription of action as their best next steps, because it will come as no surprise to you or any of your listeners that those people who take the action, they're usually the ones that get the results. If they sit in the corner and meditate and, wait for the media to come to them, then surprise, surprise, they probably won't get any results. So it is about taking the action. And then it's about giving the journalists what they want. Now, for those people who've come to the masterclass, they've heard firsthand what the journalists want. They've got a leg up for sure. No question. But for those who don't come to the masterclass and they're thinking, gosh, how do I even start this? The best way to start is to look at the media that you want to target. Understand who inside of that media outlet is covering things that relate to your business. So is it the food writer if you've got a new cookbook or you're a nutritionist? Is it the education writer if you've got a new program that can fast track kids' maths abilities? Is it the environmental writer if you've got amazing drones that go and plant and reforest the planet? Understand who it is within the media that covers your particular area, your niche, your area of expertise, and then follow what it is that they cover. Because if the environmental writer, for example, has just done a piece on drone planting, you don't want to pitch the same thing, because he or she will say, I've just done an article on that. And it shows two things. One, they're not going to do a do-over. But the second thing that it shows the journalist is you don't know the media outlet. You haven't done your research. The journalists that come to the masterclass say over and over and over again, please watch us or listen to us or read us before you pitch to us. Know what we cover. So there's a little bit of sweat equity that people need to do themselves if they're not in the masterclass. In the masterclass, we do all the sweat equity for them and they just roll up and have a great time. But there is a little bit of sweat equity to do if you're starting from a standing start and you just want to step it through yourself. But the best thing you can do is to consume the media that you wish to pitch to.
Yeah, great. Impact there of what that will do. And just one other thing around the timings, I think this is important generally in business, right? Is that I guess some of them might be like, yeah, let's do it tomorrow, this week, or something like that. And others might take a little bit of time. And maybe there needs to be a bit of follow up and follow through and things like that to make sure that you get there eventually. So what are your thoughts around, if it's not now, like when to reach out again and everything like that to sort of not be stalkerish every week and things like that, but, still being around to, hopefully getting on there at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. So timing is really important. And this again is where Source Bottle can actually be a really great reference point. So there were call outs on Source Bottle in February for Mother's Day gifts in May. So if you see that happening on Source Bottle, and this is where it's such a great, great resource, if you see journalists on Source Bottle starting to call out for Mother's Day things in February and you've got a Mother's Day thing, you're like, oh my goodness, I need to get onto it, right? So that's another way that you can use Source Bottle. In terms of the rhythm of other media, if it's a monthly publication, like a Women's Weekly, for example, they've got a lead time of about 3 months. So where are we now? April, May, June, July. They'll be working on the July edition now. So understanding that it's a long lead time for those monthly publications is really important. I remember I had somebody call me a couple of years ago on February the 12th saying, "Oh, I want your help to pitch to the Today Show for Valentine's Day." And I said, "I'm assuming you mean Valentine's Day next year." Because by the 12th of February, they know exactly who they're interviewing for Valentine's Day. They've organized that 3 weeks ahead. It's too late. So you really do need to understand the rhythm. If it's a daily paper, the rhythm is very different from a monthly because they're working every day to punch out a book every day, every day, every day. They've got to put out their newspaper. So the pace is a lot faster, right? It's very fast in breakfast TV and current affairs TV, like a current affair in the project. They go at pace because they're news programs, right? So they've got to cover what's happened that day, as well as some of the feature programs. So if you go into pitch to one of those news type programs, it needs to be newsy and you need to be ready to go. Like you said, they might say, "Great, let's do that tomorrow." It's like, "Oh, I need a week to get my stock sorted." Okay, well then forget it. We're not going to do anything with you. It's too hard. You've got to be ready.
Yeah, love that. So true. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, it showed so much value with us here today. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here, Kate, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Please don't ever discount free publicity as part of your marketing mix. It is the most powerful marketing that you can do. You don't have to come to me to do it, but if you want to, sure. But just make sure it's part of your mix. And then my other piece of advice is please, please, please consume the media you want to target. You cannot pitch blind. You just, it will do you such a disservice. And then you'll think, "Oh, this publicity thing doesn't work." Please, 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 the best advice I can give you is consume the media you want to target.
Yeah, love that. So true, so important. And yeah, we connected through our networks. I learned about your awesome journey from being in the public relations field for many, many decades and now being the director of the Publicity Princess. Amazing woman. She had so much value with us here today. And I'm sure you continue to help people get free media exposure without using the traditional PR agency model. I'm very grateful that we connected. Look forward to partnering with you as well. So, Kate, how can people find you, get in contact with you?
Yeah, sure. The website is meetthepressmasterclass.com.au. But if you want to see the sorts of coverage that's pretty typical from our graduates, the Publicity Princess on Facebook lists, showcases all of the coverage that our people get over and over and over and over again. So you can suss us out at a distance by looking at us on Facebook. But if you want to be brave and think about that fast track to the journalists, then it's meetthepressmasterclass.com.au.
Beautiful. Awesome. Definitely check out Meet the Press Masterclass website, the Facebook Publicity Princess page as well with all of that. And yeah, hopefully take your PR right to that next level and really grow your business. And it's been a pleasure interviewing you today. Thanks for being on the Business Grow Show.
Thank you so much for having me and good luck, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.